Presentation, we want to look at the consumption function and understand it as the foundation of the planned expenditure function. The consumption function is an equation that helps economists know where an economy's equilibrium output and income would be based on just a couple variables, such as autonomous expenditures, those would be purchases that are independent of income, and marginal propensity to consume, the ratio of consuming for changes in disposable income. So I'm going to write it out here. So the consumption function here's the consumption function, and let's just talk about the parts. This C is consumption, that's households' purchases of consumer goods. This A is called autonomous consumption, and later it'll be autonomous expenditures. It's those expenditures that are really independent of income. So like if somebody used savings to buy something, or if somebody begged and they were able to buy something, or if somebody used a government check to buy something. This B is the marginal propensity to consume. That's the ratio of consumption when, that's the change in our consumption when there's a change in our disposable income. And this is disposable income. So what this statement's really saying is all the consuming that happens in this basic economy is based on consuming that's independent of income and consuming that's dependent on income. And that there's really no other way to consume. We consume independently from our income, and we consume dependent on our income. Hey guys, this is also an equation for an upward sloping line. This C would be your vertical coordinate. This A is your vertical intercept. This B is your slope, and this is your horizontal coordinate. So let's write some numbers in and see if we can solve a problem. So let's say that there's a basic economy out there somewhere, and all the consumption in the economy, they have 1.5, let's say, trillion dollars worth of independent, autonomous consuming, and they have an 80% marginal propensity to consume. And we want to find out where this economy would be at equilibrium. Now sometimes when we look at this, we're like, well, there are two unknowns here. How am I going to solve this? We know that we could use trial and error or algebraic substitution. We're going to use substitution because as economists we know that income and output, these are the expenditures on output, that they're equal to each other at equilibrium. So I can just set C equal to dy to solve, and then I can plug it back in to solve for C. So we could say dy is equal to 1.5 plus 0.8 dy. Now we just use a little bit of basic algebra to solve the problem. So here I have 80% of a disposable income. Here I've got 100% of a disposable income. So I'm just going to take that away. So that's going to leave me with 20% dy equals 1.5. Now here I'm trying to solve for this disposable income so that I can plug it back in and solve for consumption. So I want the dy all by itself. So this tells me at equilibrium, income and output would be 7.5 trillion. Now that's a little bit of basic math, but it's a lot of information for economists. It says, hey, if you know about what your autonomous consumption is, here it's 1.5, and you know roughly what your marginal propensity to consume is, here it's 80%, 0.8, you could tell where your economy would be at equilibrium. That's not saying that's where your economy is, that's saying that's where it would be at equilibrium just based on these two variables. We could use other methods to calculate GDP using expenditures or costs to find out where GDP actually is. So this tells us where it would be at equilibrium. So I want to show you one other method to solve this problem, and then we're going to make one more change. See if we can add a purchaser in. So our original equation was C equals 1.5 plus 0.8 dy. So another way to solve this would be looking at tools that we learned about in previous videos. So looking at this equation, I know that if I write it in its variability form, I know that this is consumption. These are the autonomous expenditures or autonomous consumption. This is the marginal propensity to consume, and that's the disposable income. Remember, at equilibrium, the income and the output will be equal to each other. So I can go ahead and I can say, okay, in this statement, what's A equal to? Well, it's equal to 1.5. And then what's B equal to? Well, B's equal to 0.8. Hey guys, we learned in our previous lessons, if you have a 0.8 marginal propensity to consume, other things being equal, your marginal propensity to save has to be 0.2. We want to take this information and find out what this economy's expenditure multiplier is. Well, we know, guys, that the expenditure multiplier is equal to 1 over 1 minus MPC. Here MPC is 0.8. That's going to give us 1 over 0.2. That's your MPS. And we know that that's going to give us an expenditure multiplier of 5. So what that tells us is any expenditures in this economy, especially those independent, those autonomous expenditures, they're going to be multiplied 5 times. Hey guys, if you take your 5 times multiplier times your expenditures of 1.5, you're going to get a consumption of 7.5. Try it at home. 5 times 1.5 is 7.5. So this is another way of solving this problem where you don't use any algebra at all. You just use economics. We want to add one more thing before we leave. Hey guys, we know that there aren't just consumers in an economy, that economies usually have households that buy consumer goods, firms that buy capital goods and their inventories, the government that buys private sector goods, trading partners abroad. Every time we add a purchaser to the economy, we add investors, we add the government, that addition goes into autonomous expenditures. So our original statement was C equals 1.5 plus 0.8 disposable income. Let's say that we add some investment over here. Let's say that $1 trillion worth of investment comes into the economy. Well, that $1 trillion would just be added in right here, so that becomes 2.5 plus 0.8 dy. See guys, nothing at all has happened to the rate of consuming. The only change that happened is this economy attracted $1 trillion worth of investment, bringing the 1.5 to 2.5. In economics, when we have more than one purchaser, we just rewrite the whole statement as the planned expenditure schedule so we can solve this using our economics method. We know from our previous example, this 0.8 MPC is going to give us a 0.2 MPS. It's going to give us a multiplier of 5. None of that has changed. The only thing that changed is the economy attracted another $1 trillion worth of investment. Classmates, all we have to do is take our 5, that's our expenditure multiplier, and multiply it times 2.5. 5 times 2.5, guys, that's going to give us a planned expenditure at equilibrium of 12.5. Another way of looking at this, guys, is you could do it like that. You could say, hey, this economy's got a 5 times multiplier because it has an MPC of 0.8. It's got a 5 times multiplier. So any new additions are going to be multiplied 5 times. Well, what was added? $1 trillion was added. 1 times 5 times 1 trillion, that's $5 trillion bucks. $5 trillion and $7.5 trillion, that's your 12.5 trillion. So that's a little bit on the planned expenditure function and the consumption function and how they go together. I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. It's going to be really helpful for your homework. Thanks for watching.